Well, America didn't invade any countries last year, but one city still managed to become a war zone. Unfortunately, it was within our borders, Baltimore, Maryland. It ended the year with 343 murders, or 56 for every 100,000 people. That's the city's highest per capita rate ever, greater even than during the Great Crack Epidemic, the sad epidemic of the 1980s. There's one obvious culprit for this, a stand down by police. After the 2015 riots there following the death of Freddie Gray, Baltimore cops were pressured to back off on tough policing tactics. A lot of them were afraid to go out and do what they did before. For the most part, they backed off. And this is the result. LaDawn Jones is a criminal defense attorney, and she joins us tonight. LaDawn, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me back, Tucker. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So, look, there are people in Baltimore who are, not right-wingers who actually live there, in contrast to a lot of the leaders of Black Lives Matter, rich kids on college campuses, who are saying that the police leaving has been a tragedy. This is the Reverend Kinsey Scott, an activist in the city. Quote, "We wanted the police there. We wanted them engaged in the community." Why wouldn't people who live in a city with over 300 murders want police keeping order?
Well, they absolutely do. No one never said that they didn't. They want the same thing that you talked about in your last few segments. They just don't want government overreach by having police officers who are abusive to innocent people and abusing their power rather than performing their role as law enforcement.
Well, I think everybody wants that for sure, and I agree with them completely. I hate any abuse of power, whether it's by the cops or the DMV worker you deal with, or anybody. Abuse of power is always wrong. But that's not at all what the Black Lives Matter people in Baltimore were saying. I mean, it was the cops are the problem, the city's a bad place because of the cops, and then, of course, there were threats of violence against the police. So if you're a Baltimore police officer, why would you even bother to put your reputation or your life on the line to help people?
Well, I understand your argument. As a public servant, when you have a thankless job, it's very hard to get up the next day and do what you need to do. But that's what you sign up for. I don't think that the Black Lives Matter stance. And last time I was on your show, you listed me as a Black Lives Matter activist. I'm not an activist, but I do understand their issue. They don't want government overreach by too much force by the police, and that's what they said. But that's not what people heard. People heard we don't want the police, when really they said we don't want the police to kill us, which is a pretty different thing.
Right. So the whole pigs in a blanket, murder cop stuff, that was the nuanced message that you're describing?
Well, I wouldn't think it is any more fair than to put all people who have this kind of negative and divisive connotation as for the whole city of Baltimore or the entire Black Lives Matter, any more fair than it would be to say that every white person is with the Ku Klux Klan or a neo-Nazi. That's not the case, right?
No, that was at a Black Lives Matter march. So, I mean, it's not like some out of nowhere connection. That was at a march, and it's on video, so it's not like I'm making it up, as you well know.
In every movement, there are detractors. There are people who try to take away from the real change and be divisive. There are people who are misled. We've seen that in every single movement that there was. Black Lives Matter is no different. But anyone who really looks at what they stand for, what they put out, what their leaders expose, is really getting to the 21st century policing and making sure there's no government overreach with all of us.
You keep using that phrase. I mean, I doubt that you're against any kind of government overreach except this one. But with that, let's just stick to this topic. 2017, 343 murders in the city of Baltimore. Why is that?
Well, I don't live in Baltimore. I live in Atlanta. But I can tell you as a former prosecutor, there are a number of factors that go into the increase of criminal activity. But one of the number one things, the things that Black Lives Matter ask and many others, is that we want to make sure that the police are involved and an integral part of the community, not against the community. And they have not reached that point yet.
But hold on, I'm confused. So you say that you're part of Black Lives Matter, at least sympathetic to it. So it's in the name, Black Lives Matter. I don't know what percentage of those 243.
Well, I didn't say that, but yeah.
Okay. I don't know what percentage of those murder victims were African American, the overwhelming majority. So I'm a little concerned and confused by why you wouldn't have a better answer than there are a lot of reasons. It's a serious question. Why were 343 people murdered in Baltimore this year? Have you thought about why?
Absolutely, but I don't understand what one argument has to do with the other. There are a number of reasons why there were murders of black lives, and all black lives, all lives do in fact matter. And so whether they're taken by the hands of the police or of criminals, I think people who really care about their community want to address both of those. It doesn't have to be either or.
Why? Because Black Lives Matter spends a lot of, look, Black Lives Matter spends all of its time talking about how the cops are the problem, but I don't hear anybody even thinking through, like, why is this happening? That's a lot of people to die in a small city, and I never hear anybody say why.
Tucker, I have a hard time believing that you really have a whole lot of conversations with Black Lives Matter to know what they only talk about.
I'm having one right now, and I can't get a straight answer, which is a little bit revealing, I would say.
Absolutely not. Well, see, that's exactly what I just told you when we came on. I'm not a Black Lives Matter activist, but I do understand why excessive force is an issue.
Oh, but you haven't.
As all Americans, I would hope that you would have, too. All Americans should think about this issue. And we're actually saying the same thing, but you want to divide. That's why I'm doing this segment,
because I want to get a real answer. But I'm not getting one.
And that's the answer. What is the question?
Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.